The L.A. Rams, they've chimed in. Welcome to L.A., King James. See you back in the Coliseum this fall. Nobody's more L.A. than our good friend Sekou Smith over there. Let's see if the czar can keep him in check for a couple minutes. Send it across the studio. Hello, gentlemen.
What's up, Case? Czar, what's your next question about this big move for LeBron?
I want to fire some questions over those guys there.
They need it.
Ask away, Czar. Okay, guys, listen to this. How about, since San Antonio supposedly will not trade Kawhi to the Western Conference, what if they traded to the Eastern Conference, but that Eastern Conference team then takes him and trades him to the Lakers? Could that happen?
That's a good question.
It could happen.
Well, if it does, but you can't aggregate him right away.
Right.
I think you can't aggregate, so you'd be able to trade him by himself.
3 months?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but there is a 0% chance San Antonio is going to run the risk of dealing him to someone that would do that, which is why they're very likely to stay within the family, because he can be aggregated in 60 days, but you're not going to do that in all likelihood because San Antonio is not going to want to see him get steered somewhere else.
So if he goes to Philadelphia, Brett Brown is not going to turn around and do that to Pop.
Yeah, he's going to do everything he can.
I got another question for you. Now that the Wicked Witch of the East has moved west, who's the best player in the Eastern Conference now? Who runs the show in the East?
Ooh.
It's got to be Giannis.
Giannis?
Yeah. I think so.
Embiid has something to say.
It's a discussion. I'm just saying it's a discussion. And to Sekou's point, I wanted to talk about this. I'm glad he brought it up. Okay, we know Boston's good. They're going to be good in whatever iteration they have next year. They're going to probably be the favorite in the East now. We know that Philly's good. And they're, you know, if they get Kawhi there, I think they're right there with Boston. And maybe if they don't, they're maybe a little bit behind depending on what else they do. What do those other teams do now? Toronto, Milwaukee, Washington, Indiana. Good teams, but not elite teams. I think if I'm a fan of those teams, I am demanding that they do something dramatic now this summer.
What is it? What?
I don't know what it is. I don't have a deal for every team. I will say one thing. At a bare minimum, you are going to spend taxpayer mid-level. You're going to spend non-taxpayer mid-level. If you are an Eastern Conference playoff team,
you have a shot.
This is wide open.
You have a chance now.
We're going to go back over to the other set in a second because I have a question actually for Czar as well. But we have Chris Webber on the phone.
Webb.
Last time I saw you, Webb, we were sitting next to each other and watched LeBron go home at the end of the finals, and we wondered, would that be his last game? Now we know he will be a Laker. What was your reaction to the news?
I was surprised. I wasn't shocked. I thought, you know, it was between Cleveland and L.A., and with it maybe being easier to get to the finals in the Eastern Conference, and just the fact his legacy is cemented and he doesn't have to go after championships, I just thought it was going to be L.A. But, I'm sorry, Cleveland, but I tell you, he can do whatever he wants, and it's going to be fun watching him out on the West Coast.
Well, when you look at the Lakers, there are a lot of beasts in the West. We know what Houston did. Obviously, Golden State. Paul George goes back to OKC. How far away do you think these Lakers are from being a contender even for home court advantage in the West when you look at now LeBron joining that group?
Well, they're at least a superstar, another superstar away, and probably a superstar and a half away. That's one of the things that was so surprising. But, of course, this isn't done yet. And you can't discount LeBron. We saw what he did in the finals last year, how he took a team. I think he had 20 different teammates last year, took them to the finals. So I'm not doubting LeBron's capability. But what I will say is the West is not the East. The West is no joke. And so every night, you got to watch out for a team like Denver. You got to watch out for maybe a Portland at home, but definitely a Denver, definitely Golden State and Houston. And then again, you think about, depending on what Cousins does, if he stays in New Orleans or some of these other teams. So the West and getting older, if anybody can do it, again, LeBron's the player that can do it. But you run more in the West. It's more of an open game in the West. And you need better teammates in the West, period. It's not going to be as – well, first of all, it wasn't easy. But it's not going to be able to make it look as easy as he made it look in Cleveland, just because there's less room for error in the West Coast.
Hey, Chris, Billy King here. We had the debate here in the Eastern Conference. Who's the best player now that LeBron is gone? Who do you think is the best player in the Eastern Conference now?
Wow. Well, I think that's a great question. I think if I'm Kyrie, if I'm DeMar DeRozan, especially if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm thinking of stepping up in that player. And you know, with that being said, Billy, the East Coast, I know it's not wide open because the Celtics are so good and you have the Sixers behind them. But, you know, one thing, they're still kind of young as far as playing with each other, especially the Sixers. And so, you know, it's time for teams in the East to step up. If I'm Washington and I got Bill and I got John Wall, you better do something now. It's now or never. The next 4 years, if you don't do anything in the next 4 years with this being open, guys are going to be into the twilight of their career. And so I hope that, you know, now the GMs, coaches, GMs, teams, owners have to step up and make some moves. Now is the time to make some moves. Just because Boston looks good, just because a couple of teams look good. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm saying, hey, we got to go make a blockbuster trade. It seems like it could be now or never. Now's the time to make some moves and build on those young best players in the East Coast right now.
Webb, I'll ask you something I asked Chuck. He said yes. Do you think if Kawhi were to go to Philadelphia, they would then jump Boston and be the team to beat in the East? Or are you still thinking Boston with a healthy Kyrie and a healthy Gordon Hayward, even with Kawhi, walks into this season, if healthy enough, as the top contender in the Eastern Conference?
It depends on who they have to give up for Kawhi. I'm a guy that believes you can't give up stars. I mean, I even like Covington. I like their role players. And so I think you got to be careful in who you give up for a guy like Kawhi. But, yeah, if they get Kawhi with the defensive prowess of the process, with, you know, the defense of Kawhi, the shooting of Redick, some other guys, I think, and the home court advantage there, I think that they would be the better team. I think Kawhi is the wild card, and I think he's also the wild card in L.A., even though I don't think you'll see the Spurs help the Lakers out at all.
Webb, appreciate the time on a big night. Thanks for a couple minutes.
Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Right,
enjoy watching you.
Thanks, Webb. I want to take this to the set for a second because I got to ask my GMs about urgency. Okay. And about exactly what I saw it, rightfully so. You're in Washington. Your reaction about the Wizards.
Yeah. I'd same reaction if I was in Indiana.
Give me a sense of how much that's a reality right now in those rooms. I'll start with you, Griff. And then specifically with Philadelphia, how much more, or are you willing now to give up more to get Kawhi, knowing that LeBron has left your conference?
The Philadelphia one's complicated because you'd have been willing to give up an awful lot to get Kawhi if you thought it was also going to get you LeBron. So it's hard to imagine there's a greater vig you would have paid.
Is it less then?
Than to bring that about. I'm not going to say it's less because I know nothing about the conversations.
Sure.
But it's hard for me to imagine there's a higher price you pay than the price you pay for getting that duo together. So if you work from the standpoint of they're building to win the Eastern Conference and make the finals, you certainly are going to see your window of opportunity has maybe opened sooner than you thought it would. And I think that's the point that DA has been making relative to Milwaukee, relative to Indiana, Toronto. It's a very similar situation in all of those places. And don't forget, Toronto won 59 games.
Sure.
If Cleveland doesn't rip their hearts out of their bodies.
Who was the guy that ended Dwayne Casey's stay? LeBron James.
Well, year after year.
4 years in a row.
Yeah.
But if Cleveland doesn't rip their hearts out of their bodies at the end of game one of that series,
right,
who knows what all of this looks like.
Yeah.
But that effectively ended the series.
Right.
Because they were already a little shaky in their ability to get over Mount Lebronto. And now what's happened is you've got a situation where it's wide open, and they were already 59 wins good.
Yeah.
So they feel urgency because they know they are legitimate. And I think in many of those same circumstances, people feel that way. Philadelphia and Boston just happen to have the best asset value available to put into the street to continue to improve the team.
And I think Philadelphia and Boston have to be careful because they've got young pieces and they're progressing nicely. You don't want to give up too much to get a Kawhi and rent him, and he does leave, or the thigh's not healthy. Some other teams, like, they may need to get him because, they're like Toronto, 159 games, they got a new coach. Are they going to be the same because their players are getting a little older?
Yeah.
Is it a residual of losing LeBron? Is it going to affect them in the regular season? So I think Philadelphia can sit back because of the free agent class next year is going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, let's bring back Redick for 1 year, let's go sign some guys for 1 year and build our bench a little bit and rely on Embiid and Simmons being better, Fultz getting back in the court and playing, and we'll be better. And then the following year, let's go add that piece. Because remember, Boston was a little patient.
Yeah.
Patient in getting, they got Horford. And then they went and got Hayward. They built it patiently. So I think Philadelphia can do the same thing. I know the fan base is saying, we got to go do this, we got to do it now. But sometimes, you know, I did it in Brooklyn. We tried to go too quickly, and it fell apart. So I think they need to be a little patient and be cautious because they've got a good team. They're in the playoff. They made the second round. Now try to get there and build slowly because next year you don't want to do something that takes you out of the running next year because you can say, oh, man, if we have money next year, we can really do something.
Have to hit a break. On the other side, we'll get to the other side of the court. You think they'll use their time to ask us questions again? Probably never.
No, that'd be the last time I talk to you.
Yasiel Puig, I'm very excited to have King James here with the Lakers. Looking forward to great things. I'll see you soon. Congratulations.